Hey everyone, welcome back for another episode in Adventures of Comprehension. My name is Ciera Harris and I am the author behind Ciera Harris Teaching, and I'm really excited to come talk to you all tonight and today about ways to increase test scores. Number one is to write growth goals with your students. If you are unsure what a growth goal is, let's take a quick second and make sure that we're all on the same page. A growth goal is simply a goal for a student that shows them where they are right now in a specific area, and the student and teacher together then set a goal of where the student wants to be. All right, and it's something that is completely doable within the time frame of which they're going to return to that growth goal. Writing growth goals with your students will, one, give them a lot more buy-in to what's happening in the day-to-day ness of your classroom, especially within the subject area of which they set their growth goal. So when you're meeting with your students and you're setting these growth goals, you want to make sure that you have the conversation of, all right, when in class do we do this? When do we focus on this area? So if it's comprehension, you could talk about like the read to self time, the read aloud time when the teacher reads out loud, the small group lessons. You can talk about maybe you do daily comprehension warm-ups. Maybe you do not book studies or novels. Anything that impacts comprehension at all, make sure the student is aware that those are areas that are going to help them in their growth goal, because then they will become, again, more motivated and engaged in those areas. So when you do this, and I would recommend making sure every student has a growth goal that you then check in on at least every other week, and that you have updated data to show them. When you do this, you are going to create a culture of data in your classroom where the students are actually invested in the data and the students take responsibility for their data, and it becomes less of a what did you get on the test kind of conversation, rather than this is what I did to receive this grade, or this is what I did to receive this feedback. Before we move on to the next one, I will say this. Make sure, though, with every growth goal, before you walk away or before the student walks away, to have actionable steps the students can do to meet the goal. So that is almost more important than the goal itself. I love to create just a simple little bookmark, printable, I guess you would call it. At the top, it has a very basic sentence stem where we fill in their growth goal, and then it has 3 boxes underneath with action step 1, 2, and 3, and then they use that as a bookmark for the next 2 weeks, and then it gives them and keeps their growth goal at the front of their minds at all times. All right, ready for number 2. Another way that you can increase your test scores is to use data more consistently. Data is what the students are showing and telling you they need. So there should be no lesson planning for 2-3 weeks on end in the future. I can only plan a week at a time based off the data that I have. So make sure that we are using data consistently. What does that look like? Well, that looks like having exit tickets at the end of every lesson, making sure that I don't have only a week assessment, that's the only opportunity for the students to show me what they know. By that time, it's kind of too late, don't you think? If I am putting that grade in the grade book, and that's the first time that student has had a chance to show me their ability to do that objective, then shame on me. I should have been giving them opportunity after opportunity leading up to that assessment for independent work for me to see, do they have it or what do they need help with? That is why exit tickets are so powerful, and they are absolutely needed in order to increase test scores. There's data that needs to be collected before it's too late. And the more that I can get into the routine of doing this, the more that our weekly and quarterly assessments are going to increase. And then the more that our overall standardized test scores are going to increase as well. So data is so important. All right, number 3, another way to increase your overall test scores is to make sure you're matching your students to the right interventions. A lot of times teachers will say, this student is struggling with min idea. This student is struggling with making inferences. But both of those and then every other skill you would want to put in that blank, those are huge arching standards and skills that can be broken down into bite-sized pieces. I want to know where in those bite-sized pieces are the students struggling. And then I need to match an intervention with that. So there's a lot of pieces to every skill we teach that when we don't break those down, when we don't deconstruct those standards and deconstruct those skills and look for the minute pieces, then we're doing our students a disservice because we're not matching the right intervention to the right student. So that's one of the reasons why I absolutely love this resource. These are my 10-minute interventions, and they are designed to do exactly this. Inside each one, there are 12 different skills within the whole resource. Each skill is broken down into 10 steps, and it goes from a lower level to a higher level. So, for example, this is level 1, you could say, or number 1, where it's very, very basic. Can you infer based off of a photograph? And then it goes all the way up to can you infer, make an inference, and use evidence based on schema. So every single one of these is not just an activity, it's an actual level of understanding of that skill. So you would use this resource just like I mentioned. You would want to make sure that you understand what and where your students are coming up with their misconceptions. Where in making inferences do they not understand? And then you would match the correct intervention with the student. So I have the link to my 10-minute reading interventions in the product or the video description. Make sure to definitely head over and check those out. Hey everyone, so sorry to interrupt, but I want to make sure that you are loving the content coming from Ciera Harris Teaching on YouTube. So make sure if you are loving this to subscribe and also like and comment below. I would love to hear from you. All right, we are ready for number 4. Another way to make sure that your students' test scores overall are increasing is to focus on metacognitive strategies. What I mean by this is teach your students how to monitor their own thinking. Teach visualizing. Teach synthesizing. Teach asking questions and making connections. And make sure those are at the forefront of your comprehension and reading lessons. Because when those fall by the wayside, then thinking falls by the wayside. And if our students aren't thinking and they're simply just going through the ropes, then you're going to see a definite collapse in their overall test scores. So metacognitive strategies are fantastic for all subject areas, for science, for social studies, and yes, for math. My students visualize and connect to word problems every single day in the classroom. Metacognitive strategies are it's like the vehicle of the classroom. This is what we do. We are thinkers. We are constantly keeping our brain active in a way that's going to allow us not to just listen to the content and read the content, but make meaning of the content. And without metacognitive strategies, that won't happen. So if you want more, make sure to head over to that blog post and also make sure to grab my 10-minute reading interventions. They will blow your mind, friends. Absolutely. So thank you so much for tuning in. I will see you all next week. And if you have any questions at all about any of the ideas that we talked about tonight, make sure to comment below and let me know. I'm happy to answer any of your questions. So thank you so much, and I will see you later.